6 hours after the surrender, Admiral Kexler found himself in what the humans called a conference room aboard the massive dreadnought Terra's Hammer. The room was larger than his entire bridge, with a table that could seat 40 beings. But today, only 6 chairs were occupied. Admiral Chun sat at the head of the table, flanked by Commander Morrison and 3 other human officers whose ranks and specialties Kexler was only beginning to understand. Across from them sat Kexler himself, with Commander Valand beside him. Both Zephyrians wore restraint collars that would prevent any aggressive action, though the humans seemed remarkably unconcerned about the possibility of violence. "Let's begin with the important question," Chun said, activating a holographic display above the table. "How much does the Zephyrian High Command actually know about human military capabilities?" The display showed a map of the galaxy with Zephyrian and human territories marked in different colors. Kexler was surprised to see how much space humanity actually controlled. The maps he had been shown during the war made human territory look much smaller. "Our intelligence indicated that humans controlled maybe 20 systems," he admitted. "Your technology appeared inferior based on the ships we captured and the battles we fought." Morrison leaned forward. "That's because you never fought our real ships, Admiral. Everything you encountered in 15 years of war were either civilian vessels pressed into service or obsolete military hardware we deliberately deployed to mislead you." Chun touched the display, and it zoomed in on the border regions where the war had been fought. "Your forces destroyed 17 research stations, 43 mining outposts, and 12 colonial settlements. What you didn't realize was that we evacuated the majority of civilians before your attacks began." "Impossible," Valand spoke for the first time since being brought aboard. "Our scouts watched those facilities for weeks before we attacked. We saw normal activity patterns, work crews, supply ships." One of the human officers, a woman with short blonde hair and multiple scars on her face, smiled coldly. "You saw what we wanted you to see. I'm Colonel Maria Santos, Special Operations Command." Those civilian workers were military personnel following carefully scripted routines. The supply ships were empty transports running predetermined courses. We turned the entire border region into a stage set. Kexler felt his understanding of the war shift again. "Why go to such elaborate lengths? You could have simply defended those positions with your real military." "Because we needed intelligence," Morrison replied. "Every attack you made was recorded and analyzed. Every weapon you fired gave us data on your energy signatures and weapon capabilities. Every tactical decision your commanders made was studied by our military colleges. You've been teaching us how to fight you for 15 years. The holographic display changed to show detailed technical specifications of Zephyrian ships and weapons. The information was so complete and accurate that Kexler wondered if the humans knew more about his own fleet than he did. "Your plasma cannons," another human officer noted, reading from a datapad. "Effective range of 40,000 kilometers, but accuracy drops significantly beyond 35,000. Your shields regenerate at a predictable rate that creates brief windows of vulnerability every 93 seconds. Your faster-than-light drives require a 17-second charge period that leaves you exposed during tactical jumps." "How could you possibly know all of that?" Valand demanded. Morrison stood up and walked to a viewport that showed the Zephyrian fleet surrounded by human ships. "Because humans are very good at learning from our mistakes. Every time you destroyed one of our decoy stations, we learned something new. Every time you captured one of our obsolete ships, we gained insight into your boarding procedures and interrogation techniques." He turned back to face the Zephyrians. "What you thought was a series of easy victories was actually an extended intelligence gathering operation. The largest and most expensive military deception in galactic history." Chun activated another section of the display, showing the true size and scope of human military forces. Kexler's heart sank as he realized the impossibility of what the Zephyrian Empire had attempted. "Humanity controls 87 star systems," Chun said matter-of-factly. "Our military consists of 15 battle groups, each one capable of sterilizing a planet or defending multiple star systems. We have shipyards in 12 systems capable of building dreadnought-class vessels. Our technology is approximately 3 generations ahead of anything in the Zephyrian arsenal. But the ships we captured, Kexler protested. Your weapons, your computers, everything was clearly inferior to our equipment. Colonel Santos laughed, but there was no humor in it. Admiral, those were target practice ships. Vessels we built specifically to be captured. Every system on them was designed to appear primitive while hiding the true capabilities of human technology. She activated her personal datapad. And suddenly the room's lighting system began responding to her voice commands. Ship's computer, display human technological capabilities, authorization Santos 77 Alpha. The room transformed into a 3-dimensional tactical display. Holographic projections showed human ships that made even their current fleet look small. Weapons that could crack moons. Shields that could withstand direct hits from stellar phenomena. Faster-than-light drives that could cross the galaxy in weeks instead of years. This is what we can build when we're not pretending to be primitive, Santos said quietly. The ships surrounding your fleet are actually an older design. We've been using them for training exercises and garrison duty while our newer vessels handle deep space patrol. Kexler stared at the projections in growing horror. If you possess such overwhelming superiority, why didn't you simply destroy our fleets when we first entered your space? Why allow the war to continue for 15 years? Morrison returned to his seat, his expression becoming more serious. Because, Admiral, humans learned something important about galactic politics during our expansion into space. When a species demonstrates overwhelming military superiority, other species tend to band together against them. We've seen it happen before with other apex civilizations. Chun nodded agreement. Our xenobiologists and military strategists determined that the best way to ensure long-term peace was to allow potential aggressors to defeat themselves. Let them commit resources to attacking what they think are easy targets, then reveal the true costs of aggression against humanity. A trap, Villan whispered. The entire war was a trap. More than that, Morrison corrected. It was a demonstration. Not just for your empire, but for every other species watching the conflict. The Altarian Republic, the Signan Collective, the Draconis Federation. They've all been wondering if humanity could be pushed around. If our peaceful diplomatic stance was a sign of weakness. The display changed to show a map of the entire galaxy, with dozens of different species territories marked in various colors. Many of them bordered human space, and Kexler realized they had all been watching the war with great interest. Now they know, Chun said simply. Attacking humanity is not a viable option. Peaceful coexistence and trade, however, remain very attractive alternatives. Kexler felt the full weight of what the Zephyrian Empire had stumbled into. They hadn't just lost a war. They had been used as an example for the entire galaxy. Their defeat would echo across space for generations, warning other species about the costs of underestimating humanity. What happens to my fleet? He asked quietly. To my crew? Morrison consulted his datapad. Your ships will be studied and then scrapped. The technology will help us understand Zephyrian capabilities better, which will be useful for future diplomatic relationships. Your crew will be repatriated to Zephyrian space with full medical treatment and reasonable compensation for their time in custody. And me? That depends, Chun said, on how cooperative you're willing to be in helping us end this war properly. She activated a new section of the display, showing the current disposition of Zephyrian forces throughout their empire. Your high command doesn't know about today's defeat yet? Our intelligence indicates they're planning to reinforce your position with 2 additional battle groups within the next 10 days. Kexler saw where this was leading. You want me to contact them? We want you to help us prevent unnecessary bloodshed, Morrison corrected. Your choice is to help us arrange a formal surrender that saves Zephyrian lives, or to sit in a comfortable cell while we demonstrate to your reinforcements that today's battle was not a fluke. The holographic display showed the human fleet's position throughout the galaxy. Even if the Zephyrian Empire committed its entire military to the war, they would be outnumbered and outgunned by factors that made victory mathematically impossible. Admiral, Colonel Santos said gently. Your empire made the same mistake that dozens of other species have made throughout galactic history. You assume that a peaceful species must be a weak species. You learned too late that humans are peaceful by choice, not by necessity. Kexler looked at the tactical displays showing the true scope of human military power. Ships that dwarfed anything in the Zephyrian Navy. Weapons that could sterilize worlds. Technology that made his own empire's capabilities look primitive by comparison. If I agree to help? The second day's challenges began before sunrise with a scenario that would test every marksman's ability to operate in hostile territory. The training ground had been transformed overnight into a bustling alien city, complete with civilian populations, hostile forces, and high-value targets that needed to be eliminated without collateral damage. Marcus Chien moved through the urban environment like a ghost, using techniques that had been passed down through generations of human snipers, while his alien counterparts relied on advanced cloaking technology and energy shields. Marcus used something far more primitive but equally effective, an intimate understanding of human psychology that translated surprisingly well to most sentient species. He observed the flow of civilian traffic, noting how beings moved when they were relaxed versus when they sensed danger. He studied the architecture, identifying positions that provided both concealment and multiple escape routes. Most importantly, he watched the automated enemy forces and began to understand their search patterns. The first target of the day appeared at 0630 hours, a robotic figure designed to simulate a hostile commander, positioned on a balcony 12 stories up in the city center. The challenge was complicated by the presence of civilian automatons that moved through the streets below, any of which could trigger mission failure if struck by an errant shot. Through his scope, Marcus watched as other marksmen took their shots. The Kovacsy sniper, Veloth, fired first with his advanced plasma rifle. The shot was perfectly accurate, but the brilliant energy beam created a light show that immediately drew the attention of every enemy sensor in the area. Within seconds, hunter-killer drones were converging on his position. The Gorvani marksman tried next, using a quantum destabilizer that could bend its beam around obstacles. The shot eliminated the target cleanly, but the exotic energy signature triggered every detection system within a 5-kilometer radius. Marcus studied the target zone for several minutes before taking his shot. He had noticed something the others had missed, a slight breeze that would carry the sound of his chemical-propelled round away from the most sensitive listening posts. He adjusted his aim point to account for wind drift and fired a single round. The .50 caliber bullet struck the target's center mass, sending the robotic figure tumbling from the balcony. The suppressed report of Marcus's rifle was barely audible over the ambient city noise, and there was no energy signature for the sensors to detect. "Excellent fieldcraft," Captain Morduk's voice crackled through the comm system. "You are learning the value of stealth over firepower." But Marcus had been operating this way for years. During his first tour on Proxima Centauri B, he had eliminated 43 enemy combatants without ever being detected. The key wasn't having the most advanced weapon, but understanding when and how to use whatever you had. The morning progressed with increasingly complex scenarios. Targets appeared in crowds of civilians, requiring shots that demanded absolute precision. Others were positioned behind barriers that could only be engaged through narrow windows of opportunity. It was during the third scenario that Marcus first demonstrated something that left the alien observers speechless. The target was a robotic sniper positioned in a clock tower, 2.8 kilometers away. The challenge was that the target was actively hunting for the participating marksman and would fire on anyone it detected. Other marksmen had tried direct approaches, using their superior technology to overwhelm the target's defenses. The result was always the same, a brief firefight that ended with the marksman either eliminated or forced to withdraw. Marcus took a different approach. He studied the target's behavior pattern for over an hour, noting how it scanned different sectors and how long it spent focused on each area. He identified the exact timing of its search pattern and found a position that was outside its scanning arc during specific time windows. When he finally took his shot, it was during a 17-second window when the target was focused on the opposite side of its field of view. The bullet struck the robotic sniper before it even knew Marcus was there. "How did you predict its scanning pattern so precisely?" asked Sniper Prime Veloth during the post-exercise briefing. "Experience," Marcus replied again, but this time he elaborated slightly. "Every sniper, biological or mechanical, develops habits. You learn to read those patterns and exploit them." What Marcus didn't mention was that human snipers had been playing this game of cat and mouse for centuries. They had learned to think like their targets, to understand the psychology of both predator and prey. It was a skill that couldn't be programmed into a computer or enhanced by advanced technology. The afternoon brought wilderness scenarios that tested the marksman's ability to operate in natural environments. The training grounds forest section featured dense vegetation, irregular terrain, and weather conditions that changed rapidly throughout the day. Marcus felt more at home in this environment than he had in the urban setting. The forest reminded him of training exercises in the Pacific Northwest, where he had learned to read the subtle signs that revealed an enemy's presence: broken twigs, disturbed leaf litter, the warning calls of startled wildlife. The first wilderness target appeared at extreme range across a valley filled with morning mist. Most marksmen couldn't even locate the target through the obscured visibility, but Marcus had learned to use such conditions to his advantage. He studied the mist patterns, noting how they shifted with thermal currents and wind patterns. Within those movements, he could detect the slight distortion caused by the target's heat signature. It was invisible to most detection systems, but human eyes had evolved to notice such subtle environmental changes. Marcus's shot cut through the mist and struck the target with perfect accuracy. Several alien marksmen immediately demanded to know what advanced sensors he was using to penetrate the atmospheric interference. "None," Marcus answered honestly. "Just eyes and experience." By noon, the rankings had shifted dramatically. Marcus had moved up to third place overall, ahead of marksmen with weapons that cost more than most planetary defense budgets. More significantly, he had completed every exercise without being detected or eliminated by enemy forces. The alien soldiers were beginning to take notice. During the lunch break, several approached Marcus with questions about human sniper tactics. They seemed particularly interested in his ability to remain hidden while other marksmen were regularly detected and eliminated. "Your species has an interesting approach to warfare," observed Lieutenant Commander Tizara. "A Corvanian elite sniper? You seem to prioritize survival over aggressive action." Marcus considered this while field stripping his rifle for the third time that day. "Dead snipers don't complete missions," he said finally. "Better to take longer and succeed than to rush and fail." This philosophy was deeply embedded in human military doctrine. While other species had developed increasingly powerful weapons to overwhelm their enemies, humans had learned that the most effective soldier was often the one who survived to fight another day. The afternoon's final exercise was designed to test the marksman's ability to engage multiple targets in a time-sensitive scenario. A simulated hostage situation required each sniper to eliminate 5 targets simultaneously, all positioned to detect and eliminate any marksman who missed or hesitated. Most participants attempted to use rapid-fire energy weapons or multi-target acquisition systems. The results were spectacular light shows that invariably resulted in detection and elimination by the automated enemy forces. Marcus took a completely different approach. He spent 45 minutes studying the target's positions and movement patterns, identifying the precise sequence needed to eliminate them all before any could react. When he finally began shooting, each shot was deliberate and spaced exactly 12 seconds apart. The first target fell without alarm. The second dropped before it could process what had happened to the first. By the time the third target began to react, Marcus's bullet was already in flight. The fourth and fifth targets fell in rapid succession, eliminated before they could raise an alarm or locate his position. "Impossible," breathed Veloth over the comm channel. "No organic being can calculate timing that precisely." But Marcus had done exactly that, using skills that no computer could replicate. He had read each target's individual psychology, understood their reaction times, and planned a sequence that exploited their behavioral patterns. As the second day concluded, the rankings showed Marcus in second place overall. The only marksman ahead of him was Veloth, whose advanced Korvaxi technology had allowed him to complete exercises faster, though not necessarily more effectively, that evening. The mood in the barracks was noticeably different. The casual dismissal of human capabilities had been replaced by genuine curiosity and, in some cases, concern. Several alien soldiers spent the evening studying recordings of Marcus's techniques, trying to understand how primitive equipment could achieve such consistently superior results. "Your weapon fires relatively slowly," noted the hegemony sniper during dinner. "Yet you consistently outperform marksmen with much faster rates of fire. How is this possible?" Marcus thought about how to explain concepts that were fundamental to human warfare, but seemed alien to species that relied primarily on advanced technology. Speed isn't always. The Galactic Defense Council's training facility on Kepler 442b buzzed with activity as soldiers from dozens of worlds prepared for the annual joint military exercises. The massive complex stretched across the planet's northern continent, featuring training grounds that could simulate any environment in known space. Commander Vextar of the Altarian Elite Guard watched the human contingent arrive with barely concealed amusement. The bipedal creatures looked so fragile compared to his own 8-foot frame and chitinous armor. Their equipment seemed primitive, especially the long-barreled weapons they carried with such reverence. "Look at those Earth monkeys," chuckled Lieutenant Zephron, his crystalline skin reflecting the artificial sunlight. "They brought sticks to a plasma fight." The comment drew laughter from nearby soldiers. The Korvaxi had brought their molecular disintegrator rifles. The hegemony forces carried quantum destabilizers that could punch holes through battleship hulls. The humans? They had what looked like metal tubes with glass circles on top. Staff Sergeant Marcus Chen of the United Earth Marine Corps ignored the stares and whispers as he unpacked his Barrett M10701, the .50 caliber rifle had been his companion through 3 tours on hostile worlds, and he treated it with the respect of a craftsman caring for his finest tool. "Sergeant Chun," called Colonel Harrison, the human liaison officer, "you're assigned to Team 7 for the long-range precision exercises. Try not to let our new allies' technology intimidate you." Marcus nodded, understanding the subtext. Earth had only recently joined the Galactic Defense Council, and many species still viewed humans as primitive newcomers. This exercise would be their first chance to prove themselves on an equal footing with civilizations that had been spacefaring for millennia. The training scenario was simple enough. Eliminate high-value targets at extreme range while avoiding detection by enemy forces. Each team would have 1 designated marksman, and their performance would be ranked against all other participants. As Marcus made his way to the equipment briefing, he overheard more commentary from the alien soldiers. "I heard humans can barely see beyond a few hundred meters," said an Axarian warrior, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Their optical organs are practically useless compared to ours." A hulking Gorvani trooper nodded agreement. "My targeting system can lock onto a target 40 kilometers away. These humans will be eliminated in the first phase." The briefing room fell silent as General Thixara, imposing Corvanian with silver scales and glowing blue eyes, addressed the assembled marksmen. Her reputation was legendary throughout the galaxy, having personally eliminated over 3,000 enemies during the Spiral Wars. "Welcome to Exercise Deadshot," she announced, her voice carrying the authority of absolute command. "You represent the finest precision soldiers your species can offer. Over the next 72 hours, you will face challenges designed to test every aspect of long-range combat." She gestured to a holographic display showing the training grounds layout. Phase 1. Static targets at ranges from 5 to 15 kilometers. You will engage targets while enemy forces attempt to locate and neutralize you. Phase 2. Moving targets in urban and wilderness environments. Phase 3, live fire exercises against automated defense systems. Marcus studied the terrain carefully. The training ground featured rolling hills, dense forests, urban sprawl, and open plains. Each environment would require different tactics and equipment modifications. Each marksman will be equipped with standard GDC communication gear and emergency beacons, the general continued. You may use any weapons or equipment your species provides, but no external targeting assistance beyond your personal gear. This drew knowing looks among the alien soldiers. Most carried rifles with advanced targeting computers, range-finding systems, and automatic atmospheric compensation. The humans seemed to be carrying what amounted to antique weapons by galactic standards. After the briefing, Marcus joined his assigned team. Their squad leader was Captain Mordek, a veteran Altarian who had fought in 12 major conflicts. The other team members included specialists in communications, explosives, and reconnaissance. So, human, Captain Mordek's mandibles clicked with what might have been amusement. I am curious about your weapon. It appears to be chemically propelled? That's right, sir, Marcus replied respectfully. Gunpowder ignites, pushes a projectile down the barrel at approximately 2,800 feet per second. The alien soldiers exchanged glances. Their energy weapons fired concentrated plasma at significant fractions of light speed, and your maximum effective range? Asked Corporal Sefak, a Nixarian with obvious skepticism in his tone. Depends on conditions and target size, Marcus said. Against a human-sized target, about 1.5 miles in ideal conditions. Against larger targets, maybe 2 miles. This brought outright laughter from several team members. The Korvaxi marksman, Sniper Prime Veloth, shook his elongated head in disbelief. My rifle can accurately engage targets at 23 kilometers, Veloth said proudly. Perhaps you should observe and learn, primitive one. Marcus simply nodded and continued checking his equipment. He had learned long ago that actions spoke louder than words, especially when dealing with skeptics. The first phase began at dawn the following day. 24 marksmen from 12 different species took positions across the training ground's vast expanse. Each would engage the same series of targets while enemy forces simulated by combat drones attempted to locate and eliminate them. Marcus chose his position carefully, selecting a rocky outcropping that provided excellent concealment and multiple escape routes. The stone would help mask his thermal signature, and the irregular surface would break up his outline. He began the methodical process of setting up his hide. Every movement was deliberate and practiced. He arranged local vegetation to further disguise his position, checked wind conditions using a handful of grass, and calculated range estimates to various landmarks. Through his scope, Marcus could see other marksmen taking their positions. Most used sophisticated camouflage systems that rendered them nearly invisible. The Korvaxi sniper had deployed what appeared to be a personal cloaking field. The Gorvani marksman had dug himself into the hillside using some kind of molecular excavator. The first target appeared at exactly 0800 hours. A metallic silhouette at 6.2 kilometers according to Marcus's laser rangefinder. He watched through his scope as energy beams lanced out from various positions, each one striking the target with computer-guided precision. When his turn came, Marcus took a deep breath and settled into his shooting position. He calculated wind drift, atmospheric density, and the Coriolis effect caused by the planet's rotation. His finger found the trigger, and he applied steady pressure until the rifle bucked against his shoulder. The .50 caliber projectile traveled for nearly 8 seconds before striking the target dead center. Through his scope, Marcus watched the metallic silhouette crumple under the kinetic impact. Adequate, came Captain Mordek's voice through the comm system, though considerably slower than energy weapons. The exercise continued through the morning with targets appearing at increasingly challenging ranges and positions. Marcus noticed that while the alien weapons were incredibly accurate, they also produced distinctive energy signatures that the hunting drones could track. By noon, 3 marksmen had been eliminated by the automated enemy forces. All had been located through their weapons' energy emissions. The remaining snipers were forced to relocate frequently to avoid detection. Marcus had moved twice, each time selecting positions that took advantage of natural terrain features. His chemical-propelled rounds left no energy trail, and his muzzle flash was minimal compared to the brilliant beams of plasma weapons. The afternoon brought more challenging scenarios. Targets appeared briefly before disappearing behind cover. Some moved in unpredictable patterns. Others were partially concealed behind obstacles that required precise shot placement. It was during one of these exercises that Marcus first demonstrated something the alien soldiers hadn't expected. A target appeared for exactly 3 seconds at maximum range before ducking behind a concrete barrier. Most marksmen either missed completely or struck the barrier instead of the target. Marcus had anticipated the movement pattern and fired before the target fully appeared. His round struck the target in what would have been a fatal hit on a living being. "Impossible," muttered Veloth over the com channel. "How did you predict its movement?" "Experience," Marcus replied simply. What he didn't mention was that human soldiers had been perfecting the art of precision shooting for centuries. While other species had quickly adopted energy weapons for their technological advantages, humans had continued refining the skills that no computer could replicate, reading terrain, understanding psychology, and developing an almost supernatural sense for their target's behavior. As the first day's exercises concluded, the rankings were posted. Marcus found himself in 7th place overall, ahead of several marksmen with far superior technology. More importantly, he had avoided elimination while several others had been located and neutralized by the hunting drones that evening in the barracks. The conversations were more subdued than they had been the previous night. Several alien soldiers approached Marcus with newfound curiosity about his primitive weapon.